For any way of thought to become dominant, a conceptual apparatus has to be advanced that appeals to our intuitions and instincts, to our values and our desires, as well as to the possibilities inherent in the social world we inhabit. If successful, this conceptual apparatus becomes so embedded in common sense as to be taken for granted and not open to question. The founding figures of neoliberal thought took political ideals of human dignity and individual freedom as fundamental, as the central values of civilization. In so doing, they chose wisely, for these are indeed compelling and seductive ideals. These values, they held, were threatened not only by fascism, dictatorships and communism, but by all forms of state intervention that substituted collective judgments for those of individuals free to choose. Concepts of dignity and individual freedom are powerful and appealing in their own right. Such ideals empowered the dissident movements in Eastern Europe and the Soviet Union before the end of the Cold War, as well as the students in Tiananmen Square. The student movements that swept the world in 1968, from Paris and Chicago to Bangkok and Mexico City, were in part animated by the quest for greater freedoms of speech and of personal choice. More generally, these ideals appeal to anyone who values the ability to make decisions for themselves. The idea of freedom, long embedded in the U.S. tradition, has played a conspicuous role in the U.S. in recent years. 9/11 was immediately interpreted by many as an attack on it. "A peaceful world of growing freedom," wrote President Bush on the first anniversary of that awful day, "serves American long-term interests, reflects enduring American ideals, and unites America's allies. Humanity," he concluded, "holds in its hands the opportunity to offer freedom's triumph over all its age-old foes, and the United States welcomes its responsibilities to lead in this great mission." This language was incorporated into the U.S. National Defense Strategy document issued shortly thereafter. "Freedom is the Almighty's gift to every man and woman in this world," he later said, adding that, as the greatest power on earth, we have an obligation to help the spread of freedom. When all of the other reasons for engaging in a preemptive war against Iraq were proven wanting, the President appealed to the idea that the freedom conferred on Iraq was in and of itself an adequate justification for the war. The Iraqis were free, and that was all that really mattered. But what sort of freedom is envisaged here, since, as the cultural critic Matthew Arnold long ago thoughtfully observed, freedom is a very good horse to ride, but to ride somewhere. To what destination, then, are the Iraqi people expected to ride the horse of freedom donated to them by force of arms? The Bush administration's answer to this question was spelled out on the 19th of September 2003, when Paul Bremer, head of the Coalition Provisional Authority, promulgated 4 orders that included the full privatization of public enterprises, full ownership rights by foreign firms of Iraqi businesses, full repatriation of foreign profits, the opening of Iraq's banks to foreign control, national treatment for foreign companies, and the elimination of nearly all trade barriers. The orders were to apply to all areas of the economy, including public services, the media, manufacturing, services, transportation, finance, and construction. Only oil was exempt, presumably because of its special status as revenue producer to pay for the war and its geopolitical significance. The labor market, on the other hand, was to be strictly regulated. Strikes were effectively forbidden in key sectors, and the right to unionize restricted. A highly regressive flat tax, an ambitious tax reform plan long advocated for implementation by conservatives in the U.S., was also imposed. These orders were, some argued, in violation of the Geneva and Hague Conventions, since an occupying power is mandated to guard the assets of an occupied country and not sell them off. Some Iraqis resisted the imposition of what the London Economist called a capitalist dream regime upon Iraq. A member of the U.S.